Hear the ding. I hit the button. And we're off. Everybody ready?
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Construction on a new toll-free bridge in Gulf Shores stopped today after it's been going on for the past 7 months. That bridge over the Intracoastal Waterway has been called a necessity, and it's been referred to as the Bridge to Nowhere.
Well, a judge in Montgomery has stopped the construction on the bridge for now.
Who has ever called it the Bridge to Nowhere?
It's the Cooper's Bridge.
It's not the Bridge to Nowhere. That's a bunch of bullcrap.
Now, crews have been working since October, but today a judge granted a temporary injunction.
WKRG News 5's Debbie Williams is following this story, and you have reaction on both.
She's just regurgitate the official story, Debbie Williams.
Both sides, Debbie.
I think she eats lunch with the sheriff every other Friday.
Yeah, so that bridge project, well, it's about a mile from this bridge. This is the toll bridge off of Foley Beach Express, and the judge today saying that before that free bridge project can move forward, they're going to have to spend some more time in court. The heavy equipment that has been working almost nonstop for 7 months is silent. Work cutting a road from County Road 4 in Gulf Shores to the Intercoastal Waterway put on hold by a judge in Montgomery. Gulf Shores Mayor Robert Kraft called it an unnecessary delay.
If you've never been here and know the traffic, and you just see Gulf Shores the way you think it is, and you haven't been here during the busy time, especially in the last couple of seasons, the way we've grown, you don't.
So
breathe, Mayor, breathe.
So listen, we're going to get to some statistics later on, but when I worked for the City of Gulf Shores, there were 4,700 residents. Now there's 16,000.
Understand, you can't make a decision about the traffic needs here from Montgomery if you've never seen it.
The Baldwin County Bridge Company and ALDOT, specifically ALDOT Director John Cooper, have been at odds over a new bridge for years. The bridge company had asked for a temporary injunction to stop construction while they pursued other legal action, and Circuit Judge Jimmy Poole granted it. In his ruling released this afternoon, Judge Poole said Director Cooper acted in bad faith and attempted to put a private company out of business, even going as far as calling it Cooper's Bridge.
And I think this was a political decision, Robert Kraft's opinion. Didn't see many facts that I know are there in this discussion. It's a political situation.
Politics or not, the $120 million project is now on hold while the legal battle continues.
And I can't find a seconder usually when I propose this, but I don't care. I don't need a seconder. My own opinion is enough for me, and I claim the right to have it defended against any consensus, any majority, anywhere, any place, any time. And anyone who disagrees with this, pick a number, get online, and kiss my hand.
A representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed are greater than the legal services provided by other lawyers. I'm Harry Steele. You found the Backstory Podcast, number 156, Bad Faith. And we're going to talk about bad faith from local government to federal today. And to help us wade through all this minutia, we have Mr. Rip down in Fairhope, who's a consumer advocate. How are you, Mr. Rip?
Very good here in Faux Hope, and I'm going to apologize. It does look like I'm getting that intermediate internet interference, Harry, so I apologize in the beginning.
And Mr. Mosley, how are things in Birmingham? Journalist with AlabamaToday.com.
Doing well.
All right, so let's get to it. Judge issues scathing rebuke of ALDOT Director Cooper, saying he acted in bad faith towards Baldwin County Bridge Company. So I have been following this for 20 years, and the original agreement between...
Been going on that long?
Well, you got to remember the James Bridge was built in 1999. That toll bridge has been there all this time. So anyway, before they would enter into this speculative infrastructure endeavor, they got the state and the county to agree that until this bridge is paid for, they will not build another bridge onto the island. They agreed to it. So for them to move forward, knowing that there's a contractual agreement I think I agree with the judge that Cooper and ALDOT have acted in bad faith. Now, one of the things that came up was the Baldwin County Bridge Company. Now, of course, you got to understand my perspective on this. Yes, they entered into a contract, but of course it was totally corrupt and an inside deal because it was the governor's son. And a
Former
bunch of,
governor's son.
and John Teague and some of these other guys that we're going to talk about later, may rest in peace, were involved in all this corruption down here. And he ended up going to jail for it. Was certainly bad faith. And, you know, here's the toll bridge right here at the wharf, and here's the 59 bridge onto the island. So right now they're coming in here on County Road 4, and they're cutting a road all the way down here. And then, of course, you know, this is Gulf State Park. You cannot go through the park. So all of the traffic is going to get dumped on the same road anyway. That's why they're calling it the bridge.
How long do you think it'd take them to pay off the toll bridge?
Well, I don't know.
About another 100.
Okay, well, you got to go read the damn contract because it's 50 pages long, but it's several tiers. It's not only pay this one off. When they get to another certain point, they add 2 more lanes to the bridge and pay that off. So we're talking 60 years before anybody can build a, you know, and because it was Tim James and, and by the way, people, they built this bridge for $30 million. Then they said they were in dire straits financially, so the city of Orange Beach borrowed $16 million and handed it to them. They then turned around and sold the bridge, kit and caboodled this, for $70 million to Roads LLC, which is actually an Australian company. So just understand, they have a contract that says nobody can compete with them, even though they aren't the ones that own the bridge anymore. I know it's kind of complicated, but anyway.
Well, Harry, 2 things can be true here. One, you know, John Cooper probably lied and schemed against the bridge company and didn't honor his contract in good faith. And we need a third bridge.
All that could be true. So I'm sure if we offered to pay the $70 million to pay off the other bridge, they'd be glad for us to build this new one.
Yeah, but Orange Beach is still pursuing their bridge.
Yeah, I don't believe if we built this, you know, if we built the Cooper Bridge, let's go ahead and call it the Cooper Bridge. If we built Cooper Bridge, I don't think that it's going to cost that much traffic to the toll bridge, especially during your peak times. People are like, hey, I'm going to the beach. I'm going to the beach as fast as I can get there. If I pay a toll, great. If I don't pay a toll, great. I don't care.
Well, I think the wage and hour workers that use that, you know, go down 59 and avoid the toll bridge, I think they will utilize this big time. And, you know, you can't go down Roscoe Road and do all that rigmarole to avoid the toll. You can come down the Beach Express and not go across the toll bridge. All right. So a judge ruled Wednesday to grant a preliminary injunction halting the construction of a new bridge in South Baldwin County because the Alabama Department of Transportation Director John Cooper acted in bad faith. So the other wrinkle here is that they tried to subpoena the governor's text messages and emails between her and Cooper, which must be pretty bad because she invoked executive privilege that's never been invoked by an Alabama governor before and said, how could I possibly run my administration if every one of my emails is public? And it's like, well, Governor, that's how this shit works.
Hillary emails.
After 7 days of hearing in the case, the Baldwin County Bridge Company, LLC versus John R. Cooper in his official capacity as ALDOT, the judge ruled on the side of Baldwin County Bridge Company. Baldwin County Bridge Company filed the suit to stop the construction of ALDOT Bridge that operate claimed would put the Beach Express toll out of business. And he might be right, but either way, there's a contract that says we won't build another bridge. So this is the funny thing. Saying that he cares about his citizens coming out of Robert Kraft's mouth is hilarious. Now, guess who owns all the property? Raichon. Where the road is going to dump out, you know, the bridge is going to come across here, and this is all Kraft Farms that, Robert Kraft inherited from his father. And then, of course, Paul, you're saying they were going to build another bridge over here in Orange Beach, right? Well, guess why nobody gives a shit? Because McKenna. Okay, so they sell the $30 million bridge for $70 million. So what do you do with your new $30 million, Paul? You go buy some shit that ain't for sale, like the Floribama. So the guy that actually built the bridge is now the new proud owner of the Floribama Yacht Club, and 45 cash registers at the Alabama-Florida line. He's also the one.
They need another bridge to get more people there.
No. But he's also the one that entered into a public-private partnership with the city of Orange Beach to build that. Basically the city's going to give him a prime piece of property if they agree to put in a public parking lot, and then they get to build all the retail space out. That's the same guy.
You talk about a sweetheart deal. That's it.
So if anybody's going to build this bridge into Orange Beach, who you reckon it's going to be? It's going to be McInnes and Baldwin County Bridge Company and what's his name? Tim James and all those cronies from Greenville.
James Gang.
The James Gang. So anyway, this thing sinks to high heaven. Is it in bad faith? I'll assure you all the way around. And so Robert Kraft this weekend, I don't know if y'all know this or not, but Drug Fest kicks off. And, of course, I was in court yesterday or Wednesday, criminal court, district court, and a bunch of us lawyers were hanging around. And I was like, boys, Christmas come Friday, and everybody starts rubbing their hands.
You don't want to go to the beach this weekend.
No, hell no. And here's what's funny. They have police officers on top of the condominiums with spotter scopes watching drug deals happen 4 blocks away in the parking lot, and then they call the guys at the gate and say, hey, guy in the blue shirt with the red hat, be sure to stop him because he just bought 5 hits of Molly in the parking lot over here. And then they got every female police officer in Baldwin County is in Daisy Dukes in a bikini top working undercover in the crowd. So if you come down here with drugs, you're going to get arrested. And, like I said, I handle a bunch of these. This is Christmas for me. But it's horrible for the people that have to try to live there for this weekend when the Red Hot Chili Pepper fans show up in their Sweet Pickles van with enough fentanyl to kill everybody in the county.
Yeah, when somebody you've never known and never met in your entire life approaches you at the concert venue offering to sell you drugs, one, I wouldn't trust the drugs if they were telling me the truth, and two, it's probably an undercover detective.
Brandon, these are all the reasons I didn't do drugs when I could have in college, right? Because number one, what the hell am I taking? And number two, is this some cop or narc or whatever? Because there is no drug trade without the enforcement to make it contraband. You understand that, right? It's a symbiotic relationship between the drug dealers, the snitches, the users, and the police officers. And Hangout Fest is a prime example of that. And of course I benefit. So, hey, that's good with me. All right, so we're going to watch a quick video. Did y'all know that there was a FBI whistleblower testimony in front of the Weaponization of the Federal Government Committee?
Right.
Yeah.
I did.
The gentleman from Florida is recognized.
My favorite guy.
So which Americans were being targeted? Now, August 2nd, 2022, a media organization obtained a copy of a document which whistleblowers subsequently authenticated to the committee that is styled the FBI's Domestic Terrorism Symbols Guide on Militia Violent Extremists. Mr. Boyle, are you generally familiar with that guide?
Yes.
And that guide identified certain things that made people more likely to be deemed a threat or terrorists, didn't it?
Folks, will you help me start my campaign
my God.
strong
We gotta
by
cut this
donating
out.
today? Every generation has a moment.
Yes. And wasn't one of those things just the number 2 and the letter A next to each other?
Yes, it was.
And in your experience as a law enforcement official, does putting the word 2 or the letter 2
I didn't know there were actually cameramen at C-SPAN. But
and A next to each other make someone more likely to be violent or law-breaking?
No.
And if someone signified the right, that they support the right to bear arms, was that also something in the symbol guide?
Yes.
And how about, this one really got me, the Betsy Ross flag. Was the Betsy Ross flag in the terrorism symbol guide?
It was.
And what about the Betsy Ross flag makes someone more likely to be a violent extremist?
I wish there was a reasonable explanation for that question.
There isn't. And people blew the whistle and said, this stuff is crazy. Americans are being targeted. Mr. Friend, you ever been to a school board meeting?
Yes, I have.
FBI ever sent you to the parking lot of a school board meeting?
Yes, they have.
And in the parking lot of a school board meeting where the FBI sent you, you were taking down information regarding people's license plates.
That's correct.
Now, it wasn't the first time you'd been to a school board meeting, was it?
No, I went on my own as a private citizen.
As a parent.
Yes.
And so there you were. It must have been quite an interesting perspective. There you were taking down the information of people, parents attending school board meetings on behest of the FBI. And you had been one of those parents at a school board meeting. How did that feel?
Well, after I attended privately, my colleagues teased me that they were probably going to start investigating me.
You used to go after the worst of the worst, didn't you?
Yes, I believe so.
You went after people who looked at child porn.
Yes.
People who were sexually exploiting children.
Yes.
And then you were in the parking lot of a school board meeting, taking down the information of parents. What happened to the cases that you were working to protect our communities from the worst predators that exist?
I was told they were not to be resourced, and then after I was suspended, they were handed off to local law enforcement.
Wow. So the FBI just decided it was more important to have you in that parking lot of that school board meeting than getting the worst of the worst away from people that they could harm.
That's correct. Mr. Friend, you're recognized for your opening statement. Thank you, Chairman Jorman. And members of the committee, my name is Stephen Friend. I'm a senior fellow for the Center for Renewing America. Prior to assuming my current position, I was a special agent for the Federal Bureau of Investigation for 8.5 years. During that time, I investigated approximately 200 violent crimes, such as aggravated assaults, murder, child abuse, rape, robbery, child molestation, child pornography, and human trafficking. I also served 5 years on an FBI SWAT team and spent 5 years as a local law enforcement officer in the state of Georgia. In August 2022, I made protected whistleblower disclosures to my immediate supervisor, assistant special agents in charge, and special agent in charge about my concerns regarding January 6 investigations assigned to my office. I believed our departures from case management rules established in the FBI's Domestic Investigations and Operations Guide could have undermined potentially righteous prosecutions and may have been part of an effort to inflate the FBI's statistics on domestic extremism. I also voiced concerns that the FBI's use of SWAT and large-scale arrest operations to apprehend suspects who were accused of nonviolent crimes and misdemeanors represented by counsel and who pledged to cooperate with the federal authorities in the event of criminal charges created an unnecessary risk to FBI personnel and public safety.
Okay, so he's the SWAT commander in Miami, right? Where they got to deal with the cartels and like real bad guys. And he's the SWAT commander, and they call him in and they say, hey, we need for you, we got a high value target. And, you know, we need the SWAT team to execute this arrest warrant. And he looks at it and he goes, wait a minute, this is Paul Ripp. He's a 75-year-old retired, Vietnam veteran Marine, retiree in Fairhope. And he's represented by Harry Steele, and we've talked to him, and Harry said if anything comes of this, Paul will turn himself in. Why in the hell would we send the SWAT team to Paul Ripp's house? Right?
Photographers.
And so this is what this guy loses his livelihood over. Oh, and by the way, Paul, when you're a special agent for the FBI and they put you on admin leave without pay, you can't go to work anywhere else. So these guys are just starving to death.
At each level of my chain of command, leadership cautioned that despite my exemplary work performance, whistleblowing placed my otherwise bright future with the FBI at risk. Special agents take an oath to protect the U.S. Constitution. The dangers of federal law enforcement overreach were hammered home to me when I was required to attend trainings at the Holocaust Memorial Museum and MLK Memorial. I cited my oath and training in my conversations with my FBI supervisors. Nevertheless, the FBI weaponized the security clearance processes to facilitate my removal from active duty within 1 month of my disclosures.
So all of these guys, when they went in to talk to their supervisors, they made a recording of the meeting on their phone, and that's a violation of their security clearance, which is then revoked. All three of these guys that are testifying, the same thing happened.
In addition to an indefinite unpaid suspension, the FBI initiated a campaign of humiliation and intimidation to punish and pressure me to resign. In violation of HIPAA, individuals at the FBI leaked my private medical information to a reporter at the New York Times. In violation of the Privacy Act, the FBI refused to furnish my training records for several months. To date, they only provided a portion of the records, which are...
Does this sound familiar, Paul? We can't get any records from the law enforcement agency, even our own records.
...are essential to obtaining private investigator and firearms licenses in the state of Florida. Even after releasing some of the records, the FBI refuses to confirm their legitimacy to the Florida Department of Agriculture, rendering the few documents they have provided practically useless. The FBI denied my request to seek outside employment in an obvious attempt to deprive me of the ability to support my family. Finally, the FBI Inspection Division imposed an illegal gag order in an attempt to prevent me from communicating with my family and attorneys. Working as an FBI special agent was my dream job. My whistleblowing was apolitical and in the spirit of upholding my oath. Nonetheless, the FBI cynically elected to close ranks and attack the messenger. The FBI is incentivized to work against the American people and in dire need of drastic reform, particularly in these areas. The integrated program management system incentivizes the use of inappropriate...
Integrated program management system. Do you know what that is, Paul?
What's that?
Okay, you know how you drive real careful at the end of the month because all the cops in Fairhope have a quota. They all got to write 20 tickets a month, and towards the end of the month, they likely to be looking to pull anybody over. It's a damn quota system, and the more cases they open and the more people they throw in jail, it's a incentive pay deal. So the more cases they open, the more they get paid. Does this sound like a good idea for the top law enforcement agency? Well, they're not a law enforcement agency anymore. They're an intelligence agency with police power.
Appropriate investigatory processes and tools to achieve arbitrary statistical accomplishments. Mission creep within the National Security Branch has refocused counterterrorism from legitimate foreign actors to political opponents within our borders. The FBI weaponizes process crimes and reinterprets laws to initiate pretextual prosecutions and persecute its political enemies. Bureau intelligence analysis capability increasingly dictates operations, turning the FBI into an intelligence agency with a law enforcement capability.
Hey!
FBI collusion with big tech to gather intelligence on Americans, censor political speech, and target citizens for malicious prosecution.
Okay, so Paul, this other guy, I'm not gonna watch all three of them, but the other guy, guess what he got in trouble for? Blowing the whistle that Bank of America turned over everyone they geofenced Virginia and in particular DC. Anybody that used their debit card or credit card or any Bank of America product from January 5th, 6th, or 7th, they turned it over to the FBI. And also, if they'd ever bought a firearm with their credit card or debit card, they gave them a list of those people too.
A dysfunctional promotion process fosters a revolving door of inexperienced, ambitious FBI supervisors ascending the management ladder within the agency. FBI informant protocols that are broken and abusive. The FBI skirts the Whistleblower Protection Act and exploits the security clearance revocation process to expel employees who make legally protected disclosures. I am pleased to see the Weaponization Committee is taking testimony from FBI whistleblowers. I would also like to take this opportunity to address correspondence recently received by the subcommittee. Yesterday, May 17, 2023, FBI...
Remember Matt Taibbi when he testified about the Twitter files and how the IRS showed up at his house the day before? See if this sounds familiar.
Acting Assistant Director Christopher Dunham submitted a letter to this subcommittee. Portions of his letter concerned the suspension and revocation of my security clearance. Parenthetically, I also received a letter from the FBI Executive Assistant Director Jennifer Moore yesterday notifying me that my security clearance was revoked. I find the timing of these letters dubious, but leave that up to the subcommittee's determination. Instead, I would like to address and add vital context to the portion of Mr. Dunham's letter pertaining to my alleged violation of Adjudicative Guideline J. Mr. Dunham is referring to an audio recording I created of my August 23, 2022 meeting with Jacksonville Assistant Special Agents in Charge Colt Markowski and Sean Ryan. After making protected whistleblower disclosures to my immediate supervisor in August 19, 2022, ASAC Markowski summoned me to a meeting at the FBI Jacksonville office. ASAC Markowski told me the meeting was intended to be an opportunity to discuss my concerns. I anticipated the meeting might ultimately lead to my executive managers attempting to compel me to participate in an activity which placed public safety at risk. I was concerned ASAC Markowski and ASAC Ryan may threaten adverse actions toward my career as a result of my whistleblower disclosure. Prior to the meeting, I consulted Florida law to confirm that a law enforcement exemption exists for state two-party consent restriction. I decided to record the meeting to memorialize our discussion and my concerns about the FBI's misconduct. When I entered the FBI Jacksonville office building, ASAC Markowski and ASAC Ryan were having a private meeting. I waited for them in a conference room. When they entered, all of us placed our cellular phones on the conference table. As an experienced investigator who has conducted hundreds of recorded interviews, I noted how both ASAC Markowski and ASAC Ryan repeated themselves throughout our discussion and continually insisted I agree to their premise that I was insubordinate and refusing to perform my job. I rebuffed each allegation and repeated that I believed I was fulfilling my oath of office by making my disclosure about the FBI's rule of departures and the inappropriate risk to public safety via aggressive arrest tactics for January 6 subjects. It was my sincere belief that my ASACs were also recording our conversations. In January 2023, I participated in an interview with the FBI Security Division. During that interview, I was asked if I recorded my August 23, 2022 meeting with ASAC Markowski and ASAC Ryan. I answered honestly that I had. Although it would seem to be an obvious and natural follow-up, the FBI Security Division interviewers did not request a copy of the recording. FBI Security Division should be gravely concerned if executive managers threaten subordinate whistleblowers with adverse action. I submitted that this omission by the FBI Security Division solidifies my contention that ASACs Markowski and Ryan created their own recording of our meeting. The FBI was not concerned about potential whistleblower retaliation. The Bureau was only interested in learning if these actions were at risk of exposure. I pray that all members consider the information I and my fellow whistleblowers present. You may think I'm a political partisan. You may think I am a grifter. You may think I'm a conspiracy theorist. It does not matter. Simply put, this committee should avoid the temptation to impugn the character and the motivations of the messengers seated before you. I sacrificed my dream job to share this information with the American people. I humbly ask all the members to do your jobs and consider the merit of what I have presented. Thank you.
There were 3 FBI agents who came forward. This fella here, they let him and his family think that they were being moved to like Washington State or something, and so they moved up there. And as soon as he got there, they said, "Oh, by the way, you're suspended without pay." With 4 kids. Oh yeah. I mean, just like the dirtiest stuff. And anyway, I wish we had time to listen to all of them, but refusal to execute a SWAT takedown of a January 6 suspect who'd been cooperative and it was assumed would turn himself in. Reported the practice of taking license plates and surveilling people at school board meetings, and reported the Board of Education handed over transactional data for anyone. I'm sorry, not Board of Education. Bank of America turned over the transactional data for anyone in the D.C. geofence that they set up January 5th through 7th, and also the information about the firearms. So while we're on bad faith, and I thought we would take a minute and take a look at the morphology of woke capitalism and what it's done to the market. So let's just let's watch this for a second, Paul. Remember, this was 4 years ago right here.
Bullying.
The Me Too movement against sexual harassment.
Masculinity.
Is this the best a man can get? Is it? We can't hide from it.
Sexual harassment is taking over.
It's been going on far too long. We can't laugh it off.
I mean, Paul, I hate to be like ageist or whatever, but are you from like the Mad Men days when if your secretary looked good, you give her a little pat on the bottom and tell her she looks nice, and she'd give you a giggle instead of breaking a chair over your head and filing a lawsuit?
No,
That
Harry.
never happened.
I never happened, man.
What I actually think she's trying to say.
Making the same old excuses.
Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys.
But something finally changed.
Allegations regarding sexual assault and sexual harassment.
But she says
And there will be no going back. Because we believe in the best in men.
Men need to hold other men accountable.
Smile, sweetie. Come on.
To say the right thing. To act the right way.
Bro, not cool. Not cool.
Not cool, Paul.
Some already are.
And Paul will say, hey, man, she was in an open street. She had plenty of running room.
And weighs big
Yo, men, forever.
Mercy, Harry.
and small.
I am strong.
I am strong.
But some is not enough.
It's not how we treat each other, okay? Okay.
Because the boys watching today will be the men of tomorrow.
Let me tell you a story about a beer rooted in the heart of America.
This morning, it's the new Budweiser ad campaign that Anheuser-Busch hopes will help the company ride out a boycott. It features the nostalgia of an iconic Clydesdale galloping through all-American landscapes with men grabbing a couple of cold ones together.
This is a story bigger than beer.
The ad coming 2 weeks after Bud Light's partnership with transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney.
This month, I celebrated my day 365 of womanhood, and Bud Light sent me possibly the best gift ever, a can with my face on it.
Mulvaney's post drew the ire of some Bud Light enthusiasts, including celebrities like Kid Rock, who played target practice with the beer. What the new ad campaign doesn't offer is an explanation for Bud Light breaking away from its traditional male-oriented advertising in favor of a trans actress with 10 million followers on TikTok. Anheuser-Busch CEO Brendan Whitworth saying, we never intended to be part of a discussion.
Yeah, Brendan's going to go down with the dude with New Coke and that kind of stuff, don't you think?
I don't know. I think people get upset about the stupidest things, to tell you the truth.
Okay, so this is another podcast, but they do a great job at this, Paul. So this is the new Adidas swimwear commercial, and that is a dude in the one piece.
You can see here the new Adidas women's swimwear range model by a man. And I do mean a man. I mean, let's be real. The bulge is real.
Oh, no. Too much information.
Do you think...
I be me, you be you.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, this
I be me, you be you.
Okay, well, this is on regular TV. And
well, so what?
Things that people have to see whether they want to or not.
I remember when the bra commercial was the very first bra commercial and everybody wigged out. Give me a break. This is 2023. Of course, now we are in a time warp here in Alabama, but I mean, it is 2023.
Okay, well, I got a feeling there's going to be a little backlash from the people that wear Adidas products. We'll just wait and see if I'm right.
That's up to them. That's their right, yeah.
Okay, so sticking to the trans theme, Brandon, you can tell us a little bit more about this. There was a ban last year for trans athletes participating in Alabama High School Athletic Association events, and this new one has to do with college athletes. How's that going to fly?
And
in the National Collegiate Athletic Association in charge of this stuff?
Well, theoretically, the Biden administration is in charge because they wrote new Title IX guidelines. They took the old 72 ones, threw them in the garbage, and wrote their own ones that, lets a woman be a man who claims to be a woman, even though biologically and genetically there's only two genders. And a man can never be a woman.
Well, Brandon, if you're swimming for Auburn, it's pretty hard to hide your twig and berries in a one-piece swimsuit.
Well, there's that Leo woman up in, New England in the Ivy League, and when he was he was barely on, the Ivy League men's team. He switched and put a women's swimsuit on, and next thing you know, he is competing for national NCAA championships.
Okay,
because women, biologically, don't have the testosterone that some dude, is born with. So,
okay, so I know about tennis. Okay, so when the United States Tennis Association, if you go to a club and they have a USTA pro and you want to play in their league, you have to go out there and they rate you. They give you I think I was a 3.5. A 5's not real good. A 1 is as good as you can get. So when you go look at the tennis ratings for women versus men, like Serena Williams, if she was in the men's ranking, she'd be like number 125.
Yeah, Serena has said that. People. Well, Serena, could you compete on the men's? It'd be like, I would be like, barely making the tournament versus the best in the world, which she is as a woman. That's fact. But see, what's happened is because, the Biden administration is not willing to tell their LGBTQ plus minus whatever they are following that there's only two genders. And if you're born a boy, you'll always be a boy. And we can't let you compete in women's athletics. The state of Alabama decided to step in, or the House did anyway, and they passed their own, legislation that Susan DuBose out of Leeds, I think she's out, she's near Leeds, carried, where it says, hey, in an Alabama institution, only women can compete as men. Now, it and federal law in Title IX, as rewritten by the Biden administration without congressional authorization to do so, they're going to have a legal issue if, the Senate passes the transgender, ban. I think Larry Stutz is carrying it.
All right. Well, I thought that was so sticking to the government being in our bedrooms and every other facet and acting in bad faith. Alabama House passes bill requiring activated porn filters on cell phones and tablets.
That's going to go a long way.
Well, all of us, when we buy our cell phone, we have a porn filter that's already installed. Now, most of us are never aware of it because it's not active. And, most of us, unless we're giving the phone to a child, would never think to go inside the controls to activate the porn filter, but it's there. What this legislation by Chris Sales does is require anyone selling a cell phone in the state of Alabama to go in and activate the porn filter before it is sold.
Man, I have got to get the march from The Empire Strikes Back on here, because every time I hear one of these bills that, is going to require 5 more state troopers to go around and make sure they're not selling cell phones at Cricket Mobile that doesn't have the porn filter, and what's the penalty? A $5 fine?
The porn filter has to be activated.
So then you get caught and you can't ever sell cell phones again. What's the penalty?
They exempted on the floor substitute. These things change as, they go through the legislative process. The retailer is not responsible. It is the cell phone manufacturer. And it's my understanding if, little Johnny gets to see some porn that he wasn't supposed to see because you sold Johnny's parents a phone without a porn filter activated, that you can go to, Harry Steele, attorney at law, and bring a lawsuit, and the attorney general is empowered, by my understanding of the most recent version of this, to go in and take action on behalf of all the little Johnnies in the state, So this is another deal where it's headed to a federal court near you if it passes.
Okay, well, let's while they're sticking in our bedrooms and our electronics, Brandon, you need to kind of explain this, because Paul, you better pay attention. This is really, talk about some bad faith and legislating from the pulpit. Go for it, Brandon.
Okay, this is tied to the previous bill. What happened is Chris Sells had his bill about the porn filters on the cell phones. On the floor of the House Tuesday, when the Chris Sells bill was being debated, Ben Robbins, who is an attorney out of Sylacauga, took to the floor.
An attorney did this, Paul. Go ahead.
And he brought his own bill that said that, hey, we don't need to tell the cell phone manufacturers what to do. What we'll do is we will tell the porn manufacturers what to do. And if you have porn, which is distributed in the state of Alabama, electronically or physically, you have to have age verification to it. And you have to register the state of Alabama to show that you have age verification is working. The problem with this is that most of the porn that people in Alabama watch, or that, little Johnny may actually didn't get a hold of, wasn't produced in Alabama. It's from someplace else, either California,
San Fernando Valley.
It's in California.
It's in Ukraine,
Panama, Ukraine, Russia,
Miami,
Hong Kong, or some skanky girl who has her own website somewhere. Their intent is to sell porn on the web. The individual states have their own little deals. And Robin said that he was the first one in the world to think of this, as far as he knows.
Well, because all other lawyers understand the concept of interstate commerce and federal supremacy, and like I can think of.
But anyway, he made a motion to sub Sales' bill for his bill. And of course, Sales has been working on this for 4 years. And it was like, no, I like my bill, which did the porn filter thing. That's my bill. And they got into it on the floor. And so the next day, when I was in covering the Judiciary Committee meeting of the House, Robbins had introduced his bill. I think he left the floor and introduced his substitute of the Sales bill as his own standalone anti-porn bill, which will allow, if little Johnny sees some porn he's not allowed to, Johnny's parents could then sue the porn company that did not have adequate age verification stuff on there. The original version of the bill required every user of a porn site in the Ukraine or wherever to present their driver's license to the porn site to prove that they are indeed 18.
Don't you want to upload your driver's license to be able to look at some porn, Paul? And
Representative Matt Simpson from your area realized that was an issue. So he, another attorney, and David Faulkner out of Mountain Brook got together and they helped Robbins rewrite this bill.
Oh, I thought they might have got him to rehab or something. But they helped him rewrite the bill. They didn't get him to
rewrote the bill, and I'm not clear how you do age verification, but on the, in committee, Robbins said we can use biometrics, so that I can prove that Brendan is Brendan, and Brendan somehow is not less than 18, or use your credit report. You're going to upload this to the porn company to prove that you're 18 so you can go to the site. This is going to be rather expensive for internet folks that are involved in such activities. And my question with this is, what is a porn company? I think we all know Debbie Does Dallas would be porn.
I know it when I see it. That's what the Supreme Court said.
Well,
and you got to remember, Hugo Black absolutely said we're not getting into content. The Supreme Court, we don't. What they said this 100 years ago.
Well, the state of Alabama is smarter than Hugo, or at least Ben Robbins thinks we are. Is the little actress on, that plays Catherine the Great on the, the Netflix, what is that?
The Kingdom or The Crown or.
Yeah, The Great, The Great, I think it's a Netflix. That may be the service that is producing that. Obviously there is a lot of nipples that are shown in that. Is that porn?
Yeah, what is porn?
What exactly is porn? Is it, a Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue can go from being, PG-13 to rated R with, a camera angle,
What about mature audiences?
Well, if you prove you're a mature audience, you can watch. I guess anything with a mature audience arguably would apply to the same thing. So this may be bigger than just the Playboy channel online that's going to have to comply in order to be able to distribute their product in Alabama without Steve Marshall having to come get them.
These international films that you can get on certain channels, they're all MA. Mature audience.
I've been in Europe, and if you flip on a regular broadcast channel, there are things that will pop up that they're not going to let on ABC or NBC or
right.
It would have to be on like Skinamax and Showtime here.
Bad faith, Paul. Remember, we're talking about bad faith bills. All right. So the Alabama Legislature has finally come to their senses and carved out $10 million to provide some judges around the state. And Baldwin County is going to get one circuit judge and one district judge. Madison County is going to get one, Autauga, Chilton, and Elmore. So, Paul, this is what I wanted to show you.
Well, this has passed the House, and there have been multiple versions of this bill. I think Lauderdale has been out and been in and been out again. Everybody wants to get a judge for their district. That's kind of the issue here. So I don't know what's coming out of the Senate, if it comes out at all.
So, Paul, these are new people in 1 year. 574 people moved to Fairhope. Foley got 1,500 new people. Daphne got 931. Gulf Shores got 490. Do you sense a trend here? I mean, we need these judges to be able to keep up with the load. They're building a 1,000-bed jail. My goodness.
Got to fill that up.
Okay, so Brandon, this is your gun law bill. Tell us about it.
This was brought by the district attorney of Tuscaloosa County to his legislator, Cynthia Almond. Back in the 50s, we made it illegal for convicted criminals to run around with guns. Apparently they still do if you flip on the news, but it's illegal for them. If you've ever been convicted, you can't have a gun.
Of
now,
a felony,
the federal law
of a felony or domestic violence in any degree. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you've been committed to insane asylum, there's or there's a warrant out for your arrest. There's various deals, but there's a federal law and there's a state law. The federal law basically has in there, if you've ever been convicted of any felony, you lose your gun rights for as long as you live. Alabama has a statute that's almost equally as old as the Fed, but ours was, if you've ever been convicted of a violent crime, you can't have a gun. What the DA in Tuscaloosa County brought to Representative Allman is a bill saying that let's use the federal standard. Because what we did was 2 years ago, we came up with that prohibited persons database, which has the name of everybody that's in the state that we know of who legally is not allowed to carry a firearm. And once law enforcement had that little tool in their quiver, they started finding out there's a whole bunch of people that are on the prohibited persons list that carry guns that are not on, that you cannot prosecute under the state law. You know, so for example, if you've been convicted of felony theft, now felony robbery is a violent crime, where felony theft, where if I take my gun, or I threaten to, or I hit you over the head and take your lawnmower by force, I'm a robber. If I just come and take your lawnmower out of your garage and walk off with it, that's theft. So there's people with theft convictions or felony drug possession convictions that carry guns regularly. And as anybody in Alabama knows, you know, just because you can't buy a gun from Walmart doesn't mean you can't buy a gun on the street. We're selling, you know, or people are inheriting guns or, you know, buying them illegally. A lot of times where the seller's not even aware, he's just lazy and didn't do the background check. Didn't want to know that his buyer wasn't legal. This bill would put those people where our local district attorneys and our local law enforcement can bring those cases without having to call the FBI and the U.S. attorney and getting turned down, which I'm being told is happening a lot now. This was very controversial on the House floor. Probably about as many Republicans, I think 33 Republicans voted against this, but it still passed. It's now going to the Senate.
So the bottom line is, Paul, federal prosecutors don't have time to fool with all these little gun charges, and so the state wants to make it where if you're ever been convicted of felony,
too many.
you can't have a gun anymore, not just a violent crime, and
we are creating a lot more felonies too.
Right, but the important distinction here is if you're convicted of a state crime and you get your civil rights restored, like your voting rights and all that kind of stuff, you get your gun rights back.
And I can't. Sorry.
All right.
Mr. Rip is froze on us.
Yeah. So Brandon, tell us a little bit about the new open records law. Talk about bad faith.
As anyone who's ever been in journalism knows, getting a public record from like a city council or a mayor or your county courthouse forever has been a you probably have a better chance playing the lottery, honestly.
A yeoman's task. Trying to get public
records. There is a law that says they have to give you the records.
2006.
The problem with it is it doesn't spell out how you do it. So basically what happens is if you've got a clerk who follows the law religiously, she will give you the records. And they may charge you something for them, but they will follow the law. If you have a clerk or a city government that does not share, they won't. And you can go to court and bring a case and spend $30,000 or $40,000 on legal, and then maybe a judge will order them to hand it over.
So I'm jumping into a case in Macon County next week where they refused to provide a copy of the county budget to a citizen. So this happens all over the place, man.
All the time.
Yeah. So what's the new mechanics? There's so it's my understanding the new bill, if you submit a public records request, there's 4 things they can do. Can you break those down for us? Because I'm not sure what they are.
Yeah, they can. The easiest thing for them to do is say, yes, Brandon, we will give you the records.
Okay. What's option 2?
Second little option is, yes, Brandon will give you the records, but your request was a little bit broad. So, can we narrow this down? Then we've got, we can just deny the record, and here's why, because it for some reason it's privileged, and they explain in writing what that privilege is. And to me, it creates another whole court process.
Good for me.
Yeah, well, is that we did not want that attorney that newspaper would hire who gets $35,000 bringing a case that should be open law. Now they're sending letters back and forth and requests and getting receipts for documents, and then trying to figure out why the documents they were supposed, that the request said they would give, why that never came. To me, it created a whole bunch more paperwork steps for someone to go through before they ever get to a courthouse.
Yep.
But if somebody still doesn't want to follow the law, they actually have more legal ways in which to dance around it, maybe get out of it.
All right. So last week, our podcast was entitled "What the Hell is ESG?" and Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall testified before Congress last week, and you see his comments. ESG poses unique challenges to Alabama's energy consumers, as well as many of our state's leading industries like steel, iron, coal, agriculture, timber, oil, gas, all the big polluters that use a bunch of and so, of course, ESG is environmental, social, and governance criteria, a set of standards for a company's behavior used by socially conscious investors to screen potential investments. And so this week, Alabama moves to ban ESG as GOP-led states target businesses over abortion, fossil fuels, and guns. So you were there. The Alabama Senate Thursday approved a bill that would prevent state entities from contracting with companies that refuse to do business with fossil fuel producers, firearms manufacturers, companies that do not facilitate access to abortion or gender-affirming care, and other entities. This passed 27-8 on party lines after a 2-hour debate where Democrats said the bill would drive out businesses and compromise free speech. I'm going to have to agree with them here and say this is just, again, another case where you really, I need to play the Star Wars Empire music again, because the apparatus that you're going to need to ensure that no ESG calculus went into this investment is going to be, talk about witchcraft in the law. They're just going to dream this shit up and charge you with it and drag you into court.
I agree.
Throw you out as a qualified vendor to do business with the state.
I agree with that. ESG is a concern where, people have money that, is not available to certain corporations and whatnot because of, some, feel good, I want to be socially conscious stuff. But here they I think they sort of missed the boat there. The problem, is with ESG is it denies capital to, private firms that do things like mine coal or, creating electricity with fossil fuels, or maybe car manufacturers are still going to make with the regular engines, or gun manufacturers. Our response to that, is that withholding of capital was to come in and say, well, okay, if your company is involved in, takes any of these social, woke social issues up, you can't do business in the state of Alabama, and you're going to have to sign a verification form to show that you're not involved in all this. And then the Ivey administration came in at the last minute and got the minority leader to bring an amendment to this that exempted the state finance authority from having to comply with any of this. So, your big target to me is like BlackRock with, their ESG policy, that they're not going to give money to, to coal companies, or, we're not going to invest in firearms manufacturers or whatnot. The state, when they do their debt obligations, can still do it under the amended version of this bill. But a company who wants to sell, let's say, cars to the state of Alabama is going to have to sign a document saying that, they, don't discriminate against firearm manufacturers, or...
I mean, Brandon, this is like they got to sign a Pledge of Allegiance to the big mules.
Well, no, they have to sign a Pledge of Allegiance that I will, that their freedom of expression does not cross the line into freedom of expression that is politically unpopular in the state of Alabama.
So, and we're gonna talk about the consequences of ESG and transgender banning and abortion banning and all that here in just a minute. So, I do like to spotlight when lawyers do good things, and this past week, Alabamians with certain nonviolent crimes on their records will have a chance to get legal help in clearing their criminal histories in Montgomery this weekend. So there's a expungement clinic that the Volunteer Lawyers Program is putting on in Montgomery, and we do that all around the state. I think expungement, you couldn't have been convicted of the crime. You had to have been arrested and, not indicted by the grand jury, or either found innocent. You can be found innocent of a crime, and they can go back and run a criminal background check, and it just shows you were arrested for a bunch of stuff. And people can be arrested for murder, and it never come to anything, but the arrest is always there. So you always want to get these things
there's lots of people that have been investigated for whatever.
Right.
And, the people doing the investigating took a look at it, and there was no evidence to bring a case against them. Or, the investigator found them completely innocent and without blame, and this was all a fraudulent accusation. But the way we have with these records now, it's on your, anybody who pulls your record will see that you have been investigated for, in some cases, heinous things.
Right.
That you probably were never guilty of and never did.
Well, it's a $300 filing fee. You have to file it in the county where you were arrested. You have to pay ALEA for a criminal background abstract, and it's got to be sealed and all that straight from ALEA to the court. It's a difficult process, and if you're somebody with a criminal history, contact this Volunteer Lawyers Program. So here come the consequences. So report claims Joe Biden will block Space Command's move to Huntsville.
Hello. A very disturbing new report came out this week that shows that President Biden is preparing to overrule 3 separate government reviews and block Space Command from moving to Huntsville, Alabama. According to the reports, he wants to do this because Alabama is a pro-life state. The Air Force selected Redstone Arsenal over more than 60 options. Redstone was chosen because of Huntsville's world-class facilities, education, workforce, and quality of life. Lawmakers from Colorado demanded studies to review the Air Force's decision. Those studies all ranked Huntsville number 1. Colorado did not make the top 3. But now President Biden may overrule the Department of Defense and 2 independent studies. all because Alabama believes in the right to life. If the president goes through with this hypocritical and dangerous decision, it will be the worst Washington can see. This would set a terrible precedent. Is he going to close all of the military bases in red states? Lots of states are pro-life.
Thank you, sir. We will now move into questions.
Here we go.
Kyra and ABC.
Hi. Do you believe that hold-up on military promotions are also affecting Spacecom coming to the Huntsville area?
No, that hadn't even been in the conversation. There's been articles written about that stating that it is not a problem. Obviously, the Biden administration is looking for any possible way to say that, hey, we need to move it to a blue state.
All right, Brandon. So what do you know about that allegation?
The Biden administration, assuming they do take the Space Command and send it back to where it was, which is in Colorado, it never has left. Is it a rift between Tuberville, who's holding up military promotions because of Biden and, the Pentagon's abortion policies, VA facilities being used for abortions, which is illegal under, existing U.S. law.
So Brandon, let's explain this to people. So if you're watching C-SPAN 2 at like 3 a.m. and there's like one person in the whole chamber, that's when these they acquiesce to these promotions, and it's anybody in the military that's a captain.
Yeah, there's a stack of promotions. General Brandon's getting promoted, getting his second star, and does everyone agree to this by unanimous consent?
And everybody always says
says sure, because the military, they do these things, with professional officers reviewing the candidates and making the decision that this person gets that promotion. He's got his time in, his experience, whatnot, record, and the Senate doesn't actually investigate whether this major needs to be up to colonel or not. How would Tubbs know? But Tubbs, because he's mad at the Pentagon, over the abortion thing, is refusing to give unanimous consent, which would mean to make that promotion, Schumer is going to have to bring it to the floor, and they're going to have an actual, hey, we're having a hearing on whether Major Bob can be a lieutenant colonel or not.
A big waste of time for the Senate, and
it slows the Senate process down a bunch. And to me, if I was Schumer, I would have responded immediately by saying, "Okay, guys, this just means we're not going to work 60 hours a week, and you can blame Tommy Tuberville." And I kind of think after 1 week of that, Tubbs would have come around to their way of thinking, but instead we're getting into political, it's his fault. No, it's his fault. And that's
okay, but
the Tubbs policy, led to the Biden policy of yanking Space Command.
Okay, but
I don't believe that.
But the reason that he was holding it up was there was some policy that if you were in a state, if you're in the military and you're a female and you happen to be stationed,
what it is, it's over funding for abortion.
Right.
There is a rider that's been added way back when that says that we will not fund, abortion, in the defense budget
through the Veterans Affairs.
Yeah, this is the deal that's in there. There's no way they can change that because the Republicans control the House, and they're not going to vote for any legislation that allows you to conduct, use VA facilities and VA personnel to do abortions. But since you can't do abortions in a pro-life state like Alabama, they're being done in VA facilities now in defiance of the law, but, they're claiming to be federal. And that's, that breaking the law in order to have our way is by the Biden administration on this is what Tuberville is protesting with the promotions.
Right. I'm okay. That's what I wanted to get to the bottom of. It's it's a bad faith move on his part, but ultimately the bad faith is on the part of the Defense Department, because we've been told for years and years no federal money's going to provide abortions,
which is patently untrue.
Okay, so Governor Ivey came out and
a couple of high-stepping turkeys, and you know,
and she says that we're not taking no for an answer, as if we have some kind of choice, like we're going to go commandeer Space Command from the Air Force and drag them down here.
This decision was made in the waning days of the Trump administration to move Space Command, which is presently in Colorado, and send it to Redstone Arsenal, and the military reviewed 60 sites for the new and improved Space Command, and they looked at staying in Colorado. They looked in San Antonio. They looked out in Nebraska. And when they came out and they did all their studies, and this took like 2 years of studies, Redstone was number 1, Nebraska is number 2, San Antonio is number 3, and where it's at in Colorado was number 4. The Colorado legislative delegation said, you are not taking 1,800 jobs out of Colorado. And so Republicans and Democrats have just, locked the horns and thrown every little wrench in the deal that they can. Now, I think the issue that's deciding this isn't, whether we have abortions or Biden likes Tommy or Tommy doesn't like Biden. The real issue is there are 9 electoral votes in Colorado. Biden had them in 2020. If I move those 9 electoral votes over into, the Trump or DeSantis camp in 2024, that electoral college maps gets a whole lot more difficult for President Biden to stay where he is. So to me, it's a political decision. You just cannot move those jobs out of Colorado, even if the military says that they need to be moved.
Not in good faith. You can't do it in good faith.
Yeah, you can't tell those voters, hey, those people needed to move to Alabama. And Alabama's not voted for Joe Biden. I mean, if the Republicans went insane at the convention and made me their nominee, I guarantee you I'm beating Joe Biden in 2024 in Alabama.
So U.S. Rep. Mike Rogers, Republican Alabama chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, has asked the government and military to preserve all these documents that they're using to say, oh, yeah, Alabama really sucks and we're not going there.
Oh, yeah, you can about bet the House Armed Services Committee is about to have formal hearings on this, and they're going to drag this puppy out.
All right, so Paul's not here to do the lagniappe, but I did want to cover the fact that State Senator Chris Elliott stepped out and has proposed a at-large elected chairman to serve full-time as the 5th member of the county commission. And, of course, Mr. Rip's Rip Report this week is called Hair on Fire, and I thought I would just read a little bit of it to you. DUI taxman and rogue state senator Chris Elliott has lost more than his hair. He's again carrying the water for Sheriff Mack. Oh, by the way, Elliott's wife has worked for Sheriff Mack since Chris was elected to the office to office in Baldwin County, and, of course, he was a county commissioner for 4 years. Sheriff Hoss Mack is a political director behind anything happening in Baldwin County. The 5th commissioner may be a good idea, but allowing Elliott to spearhead this attempt. Well, here's the thing. Everybody on the commission's against it, and I haven't heard anybody else in the legislative delegation say that they're for it at all. So, one more time.
I mean, I live in St. Clair County, and we have the system that Senator Elliott, wants for Baldwin County, and I think it works well here. But there's like 7 different little systems.
Go talk to your county staff. Go talk to the county staff and make that same allegation. I think you'll find that nobody's happy with that, and what you end up with is a fiefdom where this one guy is going to be in control of $200 million of my tax money, and I'm not interested. So more news down here. Austal USA lands potential $3 billion contract to build the Lego ship, is what I call it. Look at that damn thing, Brandon. Looks like a Lego ship. It's some kind of Navy surveillance ship. And, of course, this is on the heels of the congressman from the 2nd Florida congressional district saying that Austal's owned by the Chinese.
I mean, I don't understand who's running the Navy. I mean, they spent all that money to build those, those littoral zone combat fighting ships.
Littoral combat ship.
Yeah, Austal and I think Lockheed made up in the Great Lakes, and now the Navy's they'll get a new one of those. And then they'll retire one as soon as it comes in. They're 7-year-old ships are being retired, and they're trying to sell them. And now I don't know why we couldn't take an existing, littoral combat ship and, put whatever modules it takes to, it's got a helicopter launch pad and all that. You can do drones and use that as your surveillance ship.
Yeah, it's probably only got 3 people on the damn thing or something. Who knows?
But, a lot of these ships, that's some of the problems with little combat ships is they're designed to operate with so few sailors that if that thing has a malfunction out on the water, they're just dead in the water and calling for a tug to come get us. It's not the old days where there were 100 sailors you didn't need who in a moment of crisis, they could save that ship, rebuild that ship, repair that ship. Those days are gone. It's just, hey, we have the minimum number of people to operate as small as, as
small a force as possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's see what else we got. Let's see. Former state pro tem John Teague has died. And, of course, Mr. Teague is the man I was talking about that was involved in the scandal related to
very nice man. I was friends with Mr. Teague for years.
Yeah. I've known him for a long time, too. He's a nice man. It doesn't mean that the things that he did was very nice or done in good faith. This is about bad faith, man. And
people make mistakes on their travels through life.
I know, and he paid his debt to society, but he's a good example of the revolving door of former members of the legislature who then become lobbyists, and even after they get caught bribing public officials, continue to be lobbyists. So that,
in defense of Mr. Teague, his preference would have been to have been elected lieutenant governor in '86, where he lost that primary to little Jim Folsom, who later moved up and became governor when Guy Hunt, got convicted. So Teague then switched over into lobbying because all of a sudden he needed a job because he gave up his Senate seat to run for lieutenant governor. And then in somewhere, in the process of the lobbying deal, got tied up with, our corrupt, system of doing road projects at the time. And so got did a plea deal there where, he was later pardoned by City of Alabama.
I don't know if you've been following the theme of this podcast, but I do not like the FBI. Okay. And John Teague led the FBI to my office to ask me for documents. That's why I hold a grudge. Okay. Like I was actively involved in this investigation back in 2000, I think it was, or 99. Anyway,
and Mr. Teague did do a deal where he did agree to cooperate with the FBI's investigation.
I bet he did. after
and
funding
one
Mr.
condition of his
Buttson's
plea deal
race car
was
team.
that he could continue to be a lobbyist even after plea.
Well, thank goodness we had 30 more years of John Teague's influence in the legislature. So yeah, there's a Hangout Fest, and then I thought we would keep everybody up to date on what's going on with the Natalie Holloway. Jordan Vandersloot has been extradited to the United States, and the judge in the case has recused herself because she says she cannot be impartial. I don't think she said I'd like to castrate the sumbitch myself, but it was pretty close to that. Bluebell ice cream is as close to crack as there is in my life, okay? And this is supposed to come out today, be available at Rouse's, and I'm going to go get me a Dr. Pepper float tub of ice cream. So one more thing about bad faith. I wanted to talk a little bit about it. This debt ceiling issue. The reason we haven't talked a whole lot about the debt ceiling is, and Brandon, I don't know if you know this or not. I'm sure that you do. The 14th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States was envisioned and put into force because of the fears that the northern states had with Southerners coming back into the fold of the Union. And so they created, I think it's Section 4 of the 14th Amendment. And guess what it says, Brandon? You can't question the validity of the debt of the United States. So, I don't know why we're sitting here arguing about something that's been codified in the 14th Amendment, but we are. And then finally, I have a case that I'm handling up in Dothan, and I thought that would be our outro. So we will do that real quick, and we will see y'all next week.
Restaurant owner claims the city's feeding program should have gone to her instead of the school system.
This would be after the previous restaurant in charge of the program was let go after being accused of taking millions from it. WGHN's Aaron Dixon is live in the newsroom with the latest. Aaron?
Mike and Amanda, Mama T's owner and her attorney are asking for $25 million from the city of Dothan and now want to know why the program didn't go to them when the other vendor was fired for mismanagement, but instead it went to Dothan City Schools to administer. Mama T's owner LaTanya Dorsey and her attorney feel the city of Dothan's feeding program should not have gone to the school system, but to them, since they were the only other bidder for the program last year.
You would have provided these services for the next 2 summers, right? If the other vendor was found to have been no longer qualified to be a vendor.
A feeding program that is now headed by Dothan City School feeds nearly 150 kids on a daily basis. It has been in the spotlight for almost a year after Breakfast at Tammy's, which used to head up the program, took home nearly $3 million. Dorsey feels her bid for the feeding program in 2022 was inappropriately released to Breakfast at Tammy's so that Breakfast at Tammy's could underbid. The controversy also led to the firing of former Leisure Services Director Stephanie Wingfield, who was in charge of the program until the city took a closer look and voted to remove her and then fired her as coordinator for the city's Leisure Services program. Wingfield tried to get her job back, but a court denied her appeal. The city says she was fired due to costing the city money, negligence in doing her job, deliberate falsification of documents, and misrepresentation to her employers. Dorsey and her attorney feel that more than one person was at fault and that the city gave the program to the school district to get it away from the city's authority.
They're trying to wash their hands of trying to say there was one rogue employee and we don't want to be in this business anymore, so we're going to, separate ourselves from this vendor and never look back.
Now, Dorsey and her attorney tell me that they are still waiting on information from the federal investigation into the feeding program and Breakfast at Tammy's, which they feel will help them in their case, and then they will determine what steps they'll take next.